The Victorian Alps is a beautiful place to visit. It has majestic scenery, spectacular wildlife and pristine natural areas. In this series, I've been learning about just how special this place is, but also that human visitors have affected alpine areas and not always for the best. The good news is the locals and people who work on the mountains are working hard to maintain its natural beauty and balance. In this episode, I look at what visitors to the mountain can do to make sure they're doing their bit in protecting these unique alpine environments. First up, I head back to Jo at her wildlife shelter to revisit our discussion around animals eating discarded food scraps. What have these all come in? They're all babies that are coming,
these are all babies. Yeah. I get a lot of baby birds with chalky beaks. The beaks break off.
Okay.
Not enough calcium in their food, so they're picking up human pie crusts, whatever. Yeah. And the baby's not getting enough the right vitamins
and the calcium and things they get from the insects.
Yeah, and they get wobbly legs.
Yep. So obviously the food you feed them isn't like human bread and things like that.
No, bread is probably the worst enemy out.
Okay.
It's
no nutrients.
No, nothing in it at all. It's really bad for birds, especially ducks and magpies and any bird.
It's scary to think that the animals Jo cares for are probably only a fraction of those who interact with our food waste in the wild. From native animals finding human foods and getting sick from eating them, through to discarded human food attracting pest species like foxes and mice to alpine areas. It's clear that our food needs to be kept out of animals' habitats to keep them safe. The other potential impact of discarded human food in alpine areas is its ability to affect the landscape and animals' habitats. A key candidate here could be an alpine bog in the middle of Falls Creek.
And so this one actually has buildings all around it. Do you see any different impacts here compared to the one we saw up on the top, in the alpine zone?
Yeah, so these areas are obviously more likely to be impacted by people and the threats that are associated with development. And in particular, these areas are set aside so they can't be developed, but they still are at risk of the litter and the apple core and fruit seeds that we've talked about getting put into the system that we need to then control as weeds.
Yep. And the apple core issue is one we sort of asked at the start. I particularly wanted to know what happens when you throw an apple core away. Do you see evidence of apple cores and is that just as litter or is that as the plants or what happens?
Yeah, so initially it is just like a litter item, but they do easily take root.
They do grow.
Yeah, in these environments, especially with the wet areas where there's enough water to just keep them growing. Yep. Apples tend to not mind having snow on them for a few months of the year and keep on growing in the summer and can become quite large and multiple stemmed. There is actually an apple tree growing just down here that we've stopped by.
That apple tree would have been from an apple core. Someone's walking along the track, thrown it in, and that's grown right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
So I've found out the answer to my question. Apple cores do grow into apple trees. But is this a problem? To find out, I met up with Jess from Hotham on the side of a steep mountain road.
So Jess, what plant are we looking at here?
This here is an apple tree, which has come from an apple seed or an apple core, which has been thrown out of a car window. Yep. Landed here, and over the years it's started to grow and spread. This is all stemmed from one apple core.
Wow, so this bit would have all been an apple core probably thrown in from that?
Yep, absolutely.
Wow, and now that it's growing and it's here, is it okay to be here?
Absolutely not. It's not a native plant for this area, and being in the Alpine National Park, it's a pest. It needs to go.
Gotta go.
When introduced fruit trees take seed and grow in the alpine environment, they take up vital nutrients and space that would otherwise be used by the native vegetation. By doing this, they also alter the habitat and make it less suitable for the local animal species, like this endangered alpine she-oak skink.
So what we do is we cut them quite close to the root here.
Yep.
We'll dab it with a dobber bottle which has got some Roundup in it. We don't spray any of the plants here. Avoids killing all the native plants around it.
Yep, so we just want this one out, we want to keep everything else.
Absolutely.
Okay, beauty, all right. Can you give us a demo?
Absolutely. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut it quite close to the ground here. Only cut one branch at a time so we know what we're poisoning. You're going to dab the poison on the end of the root there, and over time that will die off.
Yep, and so this plant will need sort of all these branches cut back, dabbed,
yep.
And then eventually it'll be gone.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
a few weeks, but it will die.
Yep, and does that mean you guys would be watching the roadsides pretty carefully for this sort of thing?
Yeah, so every day on the way up the hill we check out and make sure there's nothing growing where it shouldn't be.
Yep, and I think this might answer a question we had. Don't throw apple cores out the window.
Please do not throw any apple cores out the window, on the chairlifts, within the resort is just a no-go.
Okay,
yeah.
Great. Well, one of the questions I really wanted answered was, what about this apple core? Can people throw it out the window, and does it grow into a tree, and is that okay? And now that we've been up here and we've spoken to people about it, and we've really gotten to understand how special and unique but fragile this habitat is in this ecosystem, I know the answer to that, and I know now, once seeing those apple trees, that if they go over the edge, they can land anywhere. They can land, maybe in a place that they can be cut down by the resorts and looked after like that, but they can also land in any nook or cranny around here. So they could get somewhere where you can't actually get to them, and they're great at spreading. And I now understand a little bit more about why having those apple trees impacts some of these really special animals. It's not part of their natural habitat, and they live in such a unique place that those new plants coming in and any other waste that comes from us really makes an impact. So I think what I'm saying is that this place is fragile and special, and it really needs us to help it keep it that way. I end my journey at the base of the Victorian Alps, which is really the start of the rivers and creek systems that flow through this region. I've learnt so much by going up to the alpine areas and talking to the people that live and work there. We've seen how unique and fragile the alpine environment is. George took us to the alpine boulder fields and explained their importance to wildlife like the endangered mountain pygmy possum. Naomi took us to an alpine bog and showed us how fragile this ecosystem is. We looked at how our small actions, often without realising, can impact this important environment. Jess showed us an introduced apple tree and what the resort management are doing to manage this tricky threat. Jo introduced us to the wildlife that she's helping that have been impacted by our presence in the alpine region. Pricey showed us how recycling works on the mountain and how glass is being reused. Finally, we found out how we can continue to enjoy this beautiful place and look after it. The kids at Falls Creek showing us how they are being active in the solution through diverting their organic waste to their living bin. To conserve these special places for the future generations and the plants and animals that live there, in the end, what we should be thinking about is what we leave on the mountain and the big impact of our small choices. And most importantly, don't throw your apple cores out the window.